first-time delegate and speaker. Forgive me for the first time I've spoken, it's actually going to be from a very personal perspective, and it's to support the universal primary and secondary school free meals motion. Thank you. This is a reminder that the motion should extend all the way to sixth form, and I'm going to explain why, hopefully by not crying during the middle of it. Last year, on a part-time contract with a local higher education authority provider, I was significantly below the average wage. On the surface, my son and I would seem to be okay. After all, I'm classed as a middle-class professional, and I've got a doctor in my title, something I'm very proud, working-class background, and achieved my doctorate. However, to reliably feed my son, I relied on food banks, social supermarkets, and kind friends. My son is 17, and he deserves a full belly. He's doing A-levels, and he deserves to be able to make the best of his education. As a parent of a child who needs fed even when that fridge is empty, I felt demoralised, and my energy was sucked, and I was running for local election. And it's really hard to do that when you're worried about the kids. My own aspirations became secondary, and my son worried constantly about me being fed. When children go hungry, it sucks the energy and drive of parents. Under the last Labour government, I was also on a low wage at the time, working through a degree, a chance to get an education that I had missed during a Tory 80s government. The tax credits not only ensured my children were fed, but that I could pursue my dreams and my aspirations. I urge Conference not only to support the motion, but also to get out there and give working parents today the opportunities I had in the 1990s under the last Labour government.
Delegates, some really fantastic speeches there. I'm now going to ask... Oh, sorry, come on up, sorry. Got one more.
Hello, I'm Rachel Palmer. I'm the Disability Officer and Delegate from Wigan CLP, and this is my first. I'm struggling a little bit today, so please be patient with me. As our community often says, I have run out of spoons. But I was elected as Disability Officer to represent disabled people and chosen as delegate because I'm one of those difficult women that gets things done. So I'm determined to find one more spoon to be able to speak to. I and many other disabled people rely on the NHS and their support to be able to stay alive, let alone thrive. So I ask you to support us and support Composite 15. I get emotional. This time 4 years ago, my mental and physical health meant that I couldn't even complete a form. I couldn't work, I couldn't contribute to my community, couldn't enjoy life. I felt like my physical and mental health coming at me from both sides. It's thanks to the work of occupational therapists, CPT, physios, doctors and nurses, thanks to our NHS, that I have a career again, I have a life again, and I'm here speaking to you now. Delegates, I was excited to take part in debates and decision-making. When discussing accessibility yesterday, I was reminded that there is a ramp there. But this lectern may as well be at the top of a mountain if our disabled community isn't invited to speak at it. It's right that a number of disabled members have been able to speak today and be heard, but disabled people make up 21% of the population, and I believe we've been drastically underrepresented amongst those selected to speak. Indeed, Composites 6 and 7 specifically mentioned the disabled community and social care users and stated that at all times the community should be the centre of discussions, yet we were not invited to speak on these composites. Several people spoke of well-loved disabled people they know, and while these speeches were wonderful and really moving, there are disabled people here, and we want to speak for ourselves. Conference, please make changes to ensure that in future disabled people are properly represented at this lectern, and please support Conference.
Delegate, very well said. So now I'm going to welcome our Shadow Secretary of State for Education, Bridget Phillipson, to the lectern, who will close the debate.
Conference, it is the greatest privilege of all to be here today as Labour's Shadow Education Secretary, heading a fantastic team of Shadow Education Ministers. Because nothing is more important to our futures than education. As Keir said yesterday, Labour will run towards the challenges of tomorrow. And if we are to solve the biggest challenges we face, spreading prosperity, tackling climate change, revitalising our communities and building a fairer, greener future, in a world where children born today will live into the next century, where workplaces are changing as never before, where reskilling throughout life is essential, then education must be at the heart of every part of that, and we must build a future where children come first. Conference, this is personal for me. My mum brought me up on her own. And I remember my time at school under the Tories. Classes too big, books too few, money short and opportunities all too rare. Families like mine, judged, not helped. But I know that I was lucky. I had a loving family who valued education. I went to brilliant state schools with teachers who saw the value and worth in each and every one of us. But life should not come down to luck. That is why I am determined that every child in every school, in every corner of our country, should have the best possible start. So we need a fresh vision of that education. One that looks to the future, not to the past. A curriculum that prizes skills as well as knowledge, that values and nurtures creativity alongside academic success. We need an education system that enables every child to achieve and thrive. And our priorities will define that vision. Conference, that is why we will end tax breaks for private schools. And we will use that move to deliver the most ambitious school improvement programme for a generation. Thousands more teachers to help children excel in science and maths, and with access to sport, art, music and drama. Working with brilliant teachers, leaders, support staff and unions, we will drive up standards everywhere. ready for work and ready for life. Conference, it is the simple language of priorities. The Tories put the richest first, we put our children first. And we all know these Tories will go on making the wrong choices. Because education under this government is like a school maths problem. If you have 5 education secretaries in 1 year, 3 of them who have not a clue what they're doing, 2 of them who want to go back to the 1950s, then what have you got left? I'll tell you, a government that is failing our children. Childcare in crisis, a recovery programme in chaos, school buildings collapsing, and a skills system unfit for today, never mind tomorrow. Universities treated as a political battleground, not a public good. Conference, we will make different choices for children and families across this country, for the world our children will inherit. Today, parents spend more on childcare than on their rent or mortgages. Yet what do we see? Nurseries closing, spiralling costs, mums giving up the jobs they love because they can't drop their kids at school and get to work on time. The Tories denying parents' choices, denying children the best start that they deserve. And yet the evidence could not be clearer. Gaps in learning and development, gaps in opportunities, they open up early. And so our plan must start early too. Today, Conference, I can tell you that the next Labour government will build a modern childcare system. Families from the end of parental leave right through to the end of primary school. One that gives our children the start to their day and the start to their life they deserve. One that gives parents time to succeed and our economy the chance to grow. Conference, as the first step on that road, today I can announce that we will introduce breakfast clubs for every child in every primary school in England. They improve behaviour and attendance because it's about the club as well as the breakfast. They enable parents to work. They give mums and dads real choices. And they will help us to build the economy we all need and the society we all want. And we will fund this landmark first step by restoring the higher income tax rate for the very richest. And while education starts in childhood, we all know it doesn't end there. The skills system should support people to reskill and upskill. It should support companies to invest in their future and in ours. Conference, it doesn't. It needs to change, and change it we will. That's why our announcement yesterday, building on the work of David Blunkett and the Councillors' Skills Advisors, is crucial. By reforming the apprenticeships levy, we will give people opportunities to retrain, to upskill and to learn throughout life. And we'll drive the focus on growth right across government by creating Skills England, to bring together businesses, unions and training providers, to work in partnership, leading a national mission to upskill our country. Conference, education is all about opportunity. For each of us, for all of us, all our life long. But it's about opportunity for our whole country too. The opportunities we all gain from a growing economy, where working parents are supported to succeed and where all our children can achieve and thrive. That is the society Labour wants to build. And we will only build that fairer society of which we all dream by closing the gap among our children and young people. Conference. Education transformed my life. I know it can transform every life. It will be my mission as your Education Secretary to make sure that it does. Thank you.
Services at work from the Policy Commission Annual Report. So first, the reference back from Socialist Health Association. All those in favour? All those against? And any abstentions? That's carried. Next, from Labour International CLP. All those in favour? And all those against? And any abstentions? I think that one's carried. Well, that one is carried, should I say. The next one is from Beverley and Holder CLP. All those in favour? All those against? That's carried. Oh no, any abstentions? No, that one's carried. Sutton and Sheen CLP, all those in favour? And all those against? Any abstentions? That one's carried. Next, Dulwich and West Norwood CLP, all those in favour? And all those against? And any abstentions? Yeah, that one's carried. And now for the motions. Composite 15 Health, all those in favour? And all those against? And any abstentions? Well, that's unanimous. Composite 16 Early Years and Childcare, all those in favour? And all those against? And any abstentions? And that is also unanimous. And finally, the emergency motion support for children and families. All those in favour? And all those against? And any abstentions? And Mary Turner would be so proud because that is carried. Now we're going to take the vote on the MPF report, Public Services that Work from the Start, Policy Commission Annual Report. All those in favour? And all those against? And any abstentions? That is carried. So thank you, Conference. That concludes all the votes for Annual Conference 2022. Fantastic. So now I'm absolutely delighted to invite our guest speaker, Svetlana Shihamushka, to join us. Now, in 2020, Svetlana bravely stood for election against the president of Belarus, the Putin-backed dictator, Alexander Lukashenko. And since then, she's been forced to flee her home country, but has remained leader of the peaceful resistance against the oppressive regime, and has continued to inspire the pro-democracy movement in Belarus. And so it's an absolute privilege to welcome her to speak today. Svetlana, welcome.
Dear Keir Starmer, dear Conference, I have come here to tell you how I feel at such an important moment in our world's history. I'm happy to be with you here today. I'm happy that I'm not in a torture chamber like so many of my friends. I'm happy that my kids are with me and not in an orphanage. But I'm not happy that my husband is still in prison, and I have no idea how he is. I'm not happy that so many families in Belarus are being harmed, that so many of my people are victims of such horror. And I'm not happy that I can't go back home to my beloved Belarus, which has lost its freedom and independence. Some of you might not know this, but 2 years ago I was an ordinary housewife, raising 2 wonderful children, and I had no interest in politics. The very thought of going on a stage like this was a nightmare for me. Then my husband, Sergei Tikhanovsky, stood up against the brutal dictator who has dominated our country for 27 years. Sergei said, "I will challenge the president." The dictator responded, "No, you will not." And Sergei was locked up. My children, whom I now only see at weekends, ask me when their dad will come home. And I still don't know how to explain that their dad has been sentenced to 18 years in prison. To support my husband, I decided to put my name on the ballot for president. Surprisingly, the dictator accepted my candidacy. He let me stand as a joke. "No one will never vote for a woman," he said. But guess what? I won. Democracy won. Obviously, the dictator refused to accept the result, and hundreds of thousands took to the streets. The next morning, people of the regime called me up and said that I had lost. They said if I didn't leave the country immediately, I would never see my children again. They thought that they would just get rid of me and the movement for freedom would die. Instead, every week, for months and months, more and more people took to the streets. Under the pressure of such massive protests, the dictatorship nearly did collapse. But Putin came in to save him. They drowned the protests in violence and terror. As I am speaking today, 1,350 political prisoners are behind bars, and this number is growing every day. More than 50,000 people have been detained, many tortured by KGB. You know, I had thousands of moments when I was ready to give up, to stop my fight. But every morning I wake up and keep fighting. I don't know when our loved ones will be free, but I know that every day we are one step closer to that moment. And one of those who inspires me to continue fighting is Andrei Alexandrov. He's a journalist. For doing his job, he was sentenced to many years of prison. He was accused of high treason. Andrei is also a big fan of Liverpool Football Club. You know, people who shared a cell with him have told me that every day Andrei sings, "You will never walk alone." In his letters from prison, he puts these lines from Liverpool's anthem: walk on with hope in your heart, and you will never walk alone. You will never walk alone. And you never, on our path to freedom and democracy, we never walked alone. You can't even imagine how much support we have received from all over the world. After events in Belarus in 2020 and in Ukraine in February 2022, the world woke up to what tyranny really means and understood why it has to be defeated. The world now understands that human rights and the defense of freedom is not a local issue, and that true democracies must stand together to defend each other. Our fates are intertwined. A threat to democracy in one country is a threat to the whole world. Without victory in Ukraine, a free Belarus is impossible. And without a free Belarus, there can be no lasting peace in Europe. You know, when you hear the word Belarus, you might think of a country which helps Putin in this war. But I think about brave partisans who stopped Russian military equipment. I think about Belarusian military volunteers who are fighting in Ukraine. They understand that victory in Ukraine will lead to lasting change in Belarus. Dear Conference, today we face the most dangerous moment in our history, but there is hope. At this very moment, everything we stand for, everything we believe in, can be destroyed. Democracy, freedom, justice. On the other hand, this moment gives Belarus the opportunity to turn the tide and make our country part of the European family. But it must be the result of coordinated action. Putin must be defeated. Putin must be defeated. Putin will be defeated. Lukashenko must be defeated. Lukashenko will be defeated. You know, today I didn't come here to lecture you. I came here today to thank you. Because Britain understands our fight. The very first people expelled by the regime were 2 female British diplomats. It was the UK who immediately reacted to the political crisis in Belarus. It has introduced and tightened sanctions on the regime. It was the UK who immediately launched the program of assistance to media, civil society, and supported us in the OSCE and the United Nations, in the G7 and the Council of Europe. British parliamentarians adopted a course of political prisoners, including Lord George Foulkes and Sir Tony Lloyd, the chairperson of all party parliamentary groups in Belarus. I'm aware that Tony is unable to be here today, and I send him my best wishes on behalf of Free Belarus. And of course, I must mention the UK's role in supporting the fight of Ukraine. It has become an example and inspiration to many others. UK must continue to lead the global fight against tyranny and oppression. People all over the world look to you for your strength. We are together on the front line in the fight for democracy. And let me assure you, we will not stop. Belarusians will not stop until all political prisoners are released, until every Russian soldier leaves our country, until we hold trials for crimes against humanity, until we get our country back. I will never rest until my children, all children, can live in a country free from fear, tyranny, and war. I came here to say that we need you, and we need each other. This is not an easy fight, but thanks to you, thanks to your passion, thanks to your continued support, I know that we will win.
Thank you so much, Svetlana. There are no words really, that was just amazing. So, thank you. It's almost the end of conference, but we've got one final speaker, and we're going to end the conference how we started it, with me calling Angela Rayner.
Thank you, conference, and wow, thank you, Svetlana. What a speech. And the sacrifice that Svetlana has made for her country, she sets an example to us all. A woman, a mother, who has led a movement, not for personal ambition, but to free her country and her people. And I say the Labour Party stands with you, and a Labour government would do too. Now, conference, it's a great honour to make the closing speech before our traditional anthems. To close the week, just as John Prescott did back in the day, although I think I look better in the dress. I hope we're doing proud today. I love the traditions of our movement, from the Durham Miners' Gala to the Toll Puddle Martyrs Festival. But conference, there's one part of our history that I will never celebrate, and that's losing elections. Just think how it will feel meeting here in this hall in a few years' time after a term of a Labour government, back in power. Now, conference, this is the Labour Party, so I've no doubt that we'll also be discussing how further we'd like to go once we've debated the CAC report for around 20 minutes. But conference, what I will say is when the Tories deliver 1% of what they promise, they talk endlessly about that 1%, and we never hear about the list of broken promises. When we deliver 99% of what we promise, we talk endlessly about the 1% we didn't instead. We set a high bar, but just think about the historic Labour government and their legacy. They didn't please all of our movement all of the time, including me, but those Labour governments made history. The NHS, social security, the welfare state, council housing, modern higher education, the open university, decriminalising homosexuality, outlawing racial discrimination, introducing equal pay, the national minimum wage, Sure Start, devolution, the good private woman, civil partnership, equal tax, the human rights act, and the world's first climate change act. If we're not proud of ourselves, don't expect anyone else to do it for us. And just think what that future party conference could have to celebrate. We've shown this week how different we'll be, not just in our vision, but with our plan for Britain. Starting with the biggest challenge facing not just our country, but the world. We'll tackle the climate crisis head-on. We will protect our people and our planet, and we will pull out all the stops to build a fairer and greener Britain. As Keir set out yesterday, through our Green Prosperity Plan, we will unleash a green industrial revolution by reaching 100% clean power by 2030. We will save £93 billion off energy bills. And through Great British Energy, we will give British power right back to the British people. On Sunday, that a moment of choice is upon us. A moment to show the country that we are ready to govern. Well, conference, I know I'm a bit biased, but boy, do I think that we've shown that. Now, it isn't just that we have better policies, although we do. It isn't just that we'll be more competent, although we will. It's that our values differ fundamentally, and our policies are not better despite our values, but because of them. Labour values, the country's values too. Too often, when it comes to elections, people feel that they have a choice of heart versus head, values or competence. I say to those watching at home, this week we have shown it's a choice you will never have to make again. And this past week, the Tories have shown it too. The Conservative Party are no longer pretending to be competent and stable. Today's Tories will plunge us into chaos in pursuit of their dogma, divide the country to rule it, and regard rules as for you and not for them. I mean, they said tough on crime. They brought crime to number 10. Defenders of the free market. The market's in free fall. England's green and pleasant land. Frack it. From the party of stability to causing earthquakes, from the party of business to a slapdown from the IMF, from the party of serious government to the party of parties. Liz Truss has even crashed the pork market. Now that is a disgrace. Now you think that snouts in the trough was one of the things that they could manage? When interest rates were low and borrowing was cheap, they sacrificed public services for austerity. Now they're borrowing just as interest rates are soaring. To think this was the party that claimed they were for sound money. That's what one high-flying new Tory MP certainly thought back in 2012. He wrote a pamphlet demanding a balanced budget every year. He said, fiscal prudence is the very least we should expect from a Chancellor, and if they failed, they should face a 20% pay cut. I tell you what, that Tory MP must be absolutely furious with the new Chancellor, except he is the new Tory Chancellor. Taking that pay cut either. Because you see, pay cuts are for other people. He won't even let the budget watchdog tell him just how much of our money he's handing over to the super rich. They used to say the Tories knew the value of nothing but the cost of everything. Now they don't even know that. Now the next election won't be a choice between a strong economy or a fair society. We don't have to choose one or the other, because you can't have one without the other. An unequal economy is an inefficient one. It's perhaps the starkest difference between us and the Tories. Never again can we let them pretend that they are the patriotic party. I love my country. That's why I want so much better for it. But the Tories now think our biggest economic problem is you, the working people of Britain. And while they think you are the country's greatest weakness, we know that you are our greatest strength. And that's why Rachel and I will make the minimum wage a real living wage. We are not just the party of higher growth, but of higher wages too. And we know what the Tories think. The new Prime Minister and her Chancellor have said it out loud. The problem is that British workers are idlers, not grafters. The irony from this lot. Liz Truss says she doesn't like handouts, then handed £150 billion to the energy giants. They believe in handouts, all right. And it's the same with her other top priority, unlimited bankers' bonuses. It's the same old Tory ideology. You incentivise the richest by giving them more money, and you incentivise the rest of us by taking it away. Conference, it hasn't worked before, and it won't wash now. I know they'd rather forget it, but we're now in 12 years into Tory government, even if we are on our fourth Prime Minister. And where are they now? David Cameron, the privatised Prime Minister sold to Greensill. What was his greatest achievement? Fooling the Lib Dems, not exactly a high bar. If you care about power for power's sake and have no principles, no policies and no plan, you end up with a pointless premiership remembered only as a pub quiz answer. And then, of course, we had Theresa May. I remember her telling us that if you were a citizen of the world, you were a citizen of nowhere. If only we'd known about their green cards and tax loopholes. Their politicians becoming like their donors, residents of everywhere, taxpayers of nowhere. And then there's Boris Johnson. I do owe him one apology. I said he couldn't organise a booze up in a brewery. Turns out he could organise a booze up pretty much anywhere. Just a shame he couldn't organise anything else. Now we're a party with a serious plan. He had a plan for a serious party. I'll miss one thing though. As inflation ran out of control, at least his jokes were one thing that got cheaper every week. But the real problem wasn't that his jokes were so cheap, it was that his mistakes were so expensive. He ended his time claiming he was forced from office by the deep state. The only deep state that forced him from office was the one he left our country in. To use all of my Boris lines now while he's still remembered and while everyone knows who he is. Before he becomes a footnote in the failure of the history books. Conference, at least that's what the new Prime Minister must be hoping for, because he'll be sat on the back benches, plotting his comeback with a glint in his eye, thinking, I wasn't so bad after all, was I? What a sorry state of affairs. And what does Liz Truss have to say after a decade in government? Apparently, they were wrong all along. She's now asking for 7 years to fix it, yet offering us even more of the ideology that caused the problems in the first place. She doesn't just think that we're lazy, she must think that we're stupid as well. And that brings me to this new government. Openly chosen for loyalty, not ability. A ministry of all the talentless. Frankly, Conference, when I looked at the benches opposite last week, I thought the clowns had escaped the circus. Not so much a flying circus, a lying circus. Now, maybe I'm being unfair. My new opposite number, her first act was to get to grips with the real crisis in our NHS. The spread of a new and dangerous contagion. Not the Omicron variant, the Oxford comma. Now that's a comma before the word and, in case you were wondering. Something like this sentence. GPs are overwhelmed. Ambulances not turning up. Beds are full. Waiting times are rocketing. The NHS is starved of investment. And it's all the fault of the Tory decisions. Now, it'll take a Labour government to put that right. So here's another sentence that Therese Coffey won't like. A Labour government will double the number of district nurses, train 5,000 new health visitors, create 10,000 nursing places, double the number of medical students, and we will pay for it by reversing your handouts to the wealthiest few. And what a contrast to the government you've seen this week. Yesterday, the country saw the Keir that I know and see every day, announcing 100% clean power by 2030, driven by a British energy company owned by the British people, for the British people. He showed the true, real leadership this country needs. And on Monday, Rachel showed how Labour would govern with competence, class and care, with her as the UK's first ever female Chancellor. Setting out our National Wealth Fund to give the British public a share of the wealth that they create, and a genuine living wage that matches the cost of living. And I just want to thank my own frontbench team, Rachel, Justin, Imran and Flo and Fleur, for all that they have done. We have set out our 5-point plan for national procurement to tackle waste, fleas and lies and unleash the power of public spending. Our Fair Work standard to raise working conditions across the economy, alongside our New Deal for working people. And we haven't stopped there. Our whole shadow cabinet has shown we are a team with a plan. 70% home ownership, our renters charter, a clamp down on buy-to-let. Council housing, council housing, council housing. A domestic abuse register and a new football regulator, sewerage sanctions, job centre reform and a transformational industrial strategy, insulation, innovation, inspiration, all in one. More police officers to keep our communities safe. New Navy ships built by unionised workers in British shipyards. Closing the tax break for private schools to fund education for all. Free school breakfasts for children. New bus services in public hands. And as contracts expire, restoring public ownership of the railways. Conference, our shadow cabinet has shown what a Labour government will be. Radical, responsible, realistic, but delivering this message would be absolutely impossible without all of you. Our brilliant activists who campaign through the wind and the rain, and that's just outside this building. If you ever needed proof that an onshore wind farm can deliver, get outside the Pullman. Now I have too many people to thank. But I want to mention our brilliant chair, Alice Perry, standing down from the NEC. And Diana Holland, who is stepping down as party treasurer after 12 years.